Start, but please wait for the red line. You should be live now.
Thank you. Well, good evening and welcome to the Town Council Policy and Finance Committee meeting. This meeting will be held under the regulations allowing local authorities to meet formally using remote technology, with our standing orders having been updated to allow this to happen. This meeting is being streamed live and is available to view on our website. It's important for everybody participating in the meeting to keep your microphones muted when you are not speaking to reduce disruption from background noise. Most decisions will be made by general assent of those councillors present. However, if a vote is required, each councillor's name will be read out and you'll be asked to vote whether you're for, against or abstaining. This matter has both exempt and non-exempt business, and because the second half of the meeting is confidential, the live streaming of the meeting will stop when exempt business begins. And for the benefit of the public, exempt business means that it's confidential because commercially sensitive or legal matters are being discussed, and the minutes will be produced afterwards to record what can be said. Members will then reconvene in a private session to continue that part of the meeting. If at any time the council's technology fails and we need to adjourn the meeting for a short period, I will confirm this and ask all those present to turn their cameras off and mute their microphones while the problem is rectified, and I'll then reconfirm when the meeting resumes. We can only monitor our technology and cannot halt the meeting if a member of the press or public experiences technology issues. I will now ask the Deputy Town Clerk to carry out a roll call of all councillors present and ask you to confirm that you are present by saying present. Thank you. Over to you, Laura.
Thank you, Chair. So Councillor Blanchard Cooper.
Present.
Councillor Chase.
Present.
Councillor Long.
Present.
Councillor Malloy.
Present.
Councillor North East.
Present.
Councillor Tandy. I'll take that as not present. Councillor Walsh.
Present.
Okay,
right,
completed.
We then move on to the agenda. We've already been asked, but members are reminded to switch off their mobile phones or put them on silent for the rest of the meeting. Do we have any apologies? Deputy Town Clerk, please.
None that I'm aware of.
Thank you. We'll then move on to item 3, which is declarations of interest. The standing declarations are noted. Members and officers are reminded to make any other declarations if they become apparent at the appropriate time during the meeting. Are there any further declarations? No, thank you. Item 4 then is the minutes on pages 4 to 9 in your agenda for the meeting on the 15th of June. If everybody's happy, and I'll just ask for your general assent in a minute, these will be approved and then arrangements will be signed at a later date when we're able to go into the office to sign them. So can I ask, is everybody happy with the minutes? Anybody got any problems?
Happy.
No, they're fine.
Happy, but I'll abstain because I wasn't present at the last meeting.
Okay, but everybody else is happy, so we'll take those as approved and I'll sign them on the next available opportunity. So if we then go to item 5, Chair's report and urgent items, and I'll ask the Deputy Town Clerk if there are any urgent items, and I do believe there is one.
There is, Chair. There's one urgent item, and I'm actually going to ask the Assistant Town Clerk to provide the details, if I may, Chair.
Thanks. We're not dealing with this now, are we? Or
Yes, Chair. It's
okay,
just
we're going to deal with it straight away.
Yeah. Just to notify members that we've received notification of the intention to form a community project liaison group. This is in respect of the Rampion 2 wind farm project, which the Planning and Transportation Committee actually heard first about a couple of months ago. It's proposed that this group is formed to allow the developers there to engage with stakeholders as part of the development process. it's just come into us, and we've been asked to attend, but it's not clear what the representations should be. So it's therefore proposed that the Assistant Town Clerk and myself attend the initial meeting of the group in view of the future planning implications and report to the Planning and Transport Committee. Should a formal decision be required on Town Council's representation in the future, proposals will be put to full council for approval. So just asking members if they are happy with that proposal, and we'll report back to Planning and Transportation, Chair.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, please notify us if there is any request for elected members to attend that, because we'll have to deal with that. And secondly, for anybody who doesn't know what this is about, it's about extending the wind farm that's already there westwards to somewhere off Bognor Regis before Selseyville. So it'll be closer to Littlehampton, probably be good news for Littlehampton Port, and certainly, hopefully, will produce a lot more green electricity for use in not just locally, but across the national grid. So that's what's being talked about. Anything else on that? Any member comment? Are you happy with the proposals? Yep, I think we can take that as assent that members are happy with the proposals. If we could then move on to, so I'm just looking at my script and I've lost it. It keeps disappearing off the screen. Right, we've now got public forum. In accordance with the remote meetings protocol, which has been introduced by the Town Council, any members of the public wishing to address the Council or any of its committees during remote meetings should have emailed their question to us one clear day before the meeting. And I'll ask the Town Clerk to advise if there are any. I think there are two, actually.
Yes, Chair, there are two. The first one is from Councillor Turner, which is objecting to no sensory path in Rosemead Park. Sensory paths need not be expensive. They can provide soothing and mood-changing effects that assist the children with touch, smell and texture in a safe environment and play a positive role in the development of those with special needs. It is a colourful, playful and creative way for all children, special needs, mental health issues and those with complex learning and behavioural needs to feel totally inclusive. In many ways, a sensory path is more effective in helping special needs and disabled children than other sensory type equipment, as it encourages movement as well as benefiting mental health. Let me put this to you. Every special needs school, as well as many mainstream schools, all have a sensory path. Why is it then that LTC have not included such an important provision in the plan for Rosemead Park? Councillors received a letter from Lloyd, a child with autism, requesting more special needs and sensory equipment to be provided in parks. Provision for special needs, disabilities in general is wholly inadequate everywhere. Littlehampton is no different. This was an opportunity for the Town Council to pave the way. Please reconsider and include a sensory path in the plan for Rosemead Park.
Thank you very much indeed. And I think I have a response to that. And I very much thank Councillor Turner for her representation, with which I largely agree, having been at the Community Resources Committee regarding the new play area at Rosemead Park. If she recalls, following the discussion of this aspect of the scheme at the Community Resources Committee on the 10th of September, it was agreed that officers would go back to the contractor and get costed options for the sensory pathway, and this will be reported to the next meeting of the committee. So it is being actively investigated and will come to the next CRC meeting. Thank you. And the second question?
The second one is from Councillor Price, and it concerns regarding the item on Rosemead Park, replacing the play area. This is something I'm very passionate about, since having communication with a local resident asking for play equipment to be accessible to everyone, no matter their needs. So I have followed the processes in place and attended meetings where I could regarding this. Unfortunately, I couldn't attend the tender meeting for Rosemead as it was in the daytime. However, after communications with councillors that were on the committee and attended the meeting, they agreed on Sutcliffe Play with a clause expressing their wishes for a sensory path and an accessible ladybird. My concerns are that now this has to go through policy and finance to approve, and I really don't think that process was explained. From my understanding, it was agreed at the Rosemead meeting that the sensory path and Ladybird would be included, not that they could try and get it with approval through a committee. I'm not sure why this has been signed off without the whole committee being advised that the sensory path was a if we can. I would like to put in writing that the committee agreed on having a sensory path and Ladybird, or were under the impression they had, so Rosemead Park was accessible to everyone. Without this, the park would probably only have approximately 7 to 10% of accessible equipment to users with disabilities, which in my opinion is unacceptable.
Thank you very much. And the response to that one, again, is similar to the earlier one, but I thank Councillor Price for her representation regarding the decisions about the new play area at Rosemead Park. During the discussion by members at the Community Resources Committee in July, decisions were made to incorporate a standalone basketball wall, larger trampoline, and more inclusive and sensory equipment. It was also agreed that authority be delegated to the town clerk in consultation with the vice chair of that committee to take the action to progress the report. Following discussions with the contractor, the sensory pathway was not progressed. This aspect of the scheme was discussed again by the Community Resources Committee at their meeting on the 10th of September, which I've already referred to, and it was agreed that officers would go back to the contractor and get costed options for a sensory pathway. This will be reported to the next meeting of that committee. And I hope that explains that we are progressing this, and hopefully we'll have an answer for the next Community Resources Committee. Thanks very much indeed for the questions. I'm not sure that councillors should be using public question time for questions, but anyway, there we are. I'm very happy to answer them. So we now move on to item 7, officers' reports, and if we move to page 10 in your agenda papers, I will hand over shortly to the Deputy Town Clerk, who's also the responsible financial officer, to take us through these reports. And the first one is item 7.1, COVID-19 report, which is on pages 10 to 17. Over to you, Laura.
Sorry, Chair, there was a question from Councillor David Chase on an earlier item. I don't know if you want to address that.
Oh, okay, sorry, I wasn't told that. Okay, let's go back to Mr. Mayor. Yes, please, David.
Yeah, thank you, James. Yeah, I would just like to thank Councillor Turner and Councillor Price for their questions. And I would like to thank you very much for your very clear answer as well, because I do think there was a slight bit of confusion in it, but I'm really pleased that we are heading that way. So I'd like to thank all involved.
Thanks very much, Mr. Mayor. Thanks, David, for that. That's very helpful. Nothing else, Juliet? Okay, we'll go to Laura then for item 7.1, the COVID-19 report. Please, Deputy Town Clerk.
Thank you, Chair. So this goes from page 10 to 17 in your agenda, and it's an important update for members on action taken in response to the coronavirus pandemic. The report provides updates since the last report that committee had in June. As a further update, I would say that the Town Council's reception reopened to the public yesterday with a soft opening. There are 2 recommendations set out in paragraph 2, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks very much, Laura. Well, as members will have before them, a pretty comprehensive report with lots of headings, most of which I think we do know about, but if any members have any questions on them or comments, please can you signify?
Chair, there's a question from Councillor North East.
Councillor Mike North East, please.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just start in saying a thank you to all the staff that have worked through this. I think you've done a really good job. It hasn't been easy, and I know it's still not easy now trying to keep all us lot together and keep the offices working as well. But well done for what you've done. It doesn't look as though we're going to be returning to any sort of normality in the office for quite a while, I should think. Chairman, I'm raising an issue that's been raised by a local resident of mine, and it doesn't only affect him, it affects quite a few of them. and that is there's a lot of people in Wickbourne Ward that are low-paid workers and are still on furlough, not being able to return to work. Now, even with 80% of their wages, if you're in a low-paid job, that 20% is quite a massive cut in your wage. Although they're getting the 80%, they'll still tell you it's better than having to sign on for benefits and all that sort of thing. But however, this furlough scheme comes to an end at the end of October. Now, the Prime Minister said today that the measures that are being put in place are possibly going to be there for 6 months. Now, the person who rang me said that they're concerned that they're going to have quite a miserable Christmas, and this is going to affect a lot of local families in the town. It looks as though they're going to be thrown on the mercy of the benefit system, and that's not a good thing to have for Christmas. So all I'm asking, Chairman, is can we write to our MP in the strongest possible terms to lobby the Prime Minister and lobby the Cabinet to extend the furlough scheme into the new year, at least until these measures are lifted again, because these families have been living on a reduced income now since February or March, and they've got a prospect of going over Christmas on benefits because the furlough scheme's coming to an end. So that's all I'm asking, Chairman, that we write to the Prime Minister in the strongest possible terms to extend the furlough scheme.
Thanks, Councillor North East Mike, for that, with which I heartily concur, I have to say. I saw the figures today for the huge uptake across Sussex and West Sussex and across Arran in the number of people asking or claiming benefits, whether they're in work or out of work, and the numbers are really going up quite alarmingly. So I strongly support that, because I see nothing different with the proposed new measures introduced by the Prime Minister today, which, although not a complete lockdown, are certainly, with requests to homework and all the other announcements he's made, is in effect extending a slightly muted down version, watered down version of the lockdown that we had from March onwards. So I'd strongly support that, not just for, of course, Littlehampton Town Council area, which we're talking about today, but indeed for the whole of the Arran district area. So I'd give my support to that, and I hope other members of the committee might. Any contrary views, or anybody wishes to speak in support?
No, definitely support that.
Thank you. I'll put it to the committee then. Is the committee, sorry?
Just saying fully support it.
Thank you.
Yes, I'll be happy to support it as well.
Thanks, Jill. Okay, it seems like we've got pretty good endorsement for that. So can I just formally put it to the committee that we agree to write, and can you leave it to myself and the town clerk to concoct that letter? I'll share it with Mike before we send it to our local MP, Nick Gibb. Everybody happy with that?
Thank you, Chairman.
General assent to that one, if that's all right. Nobody against, I think we've heard anyway. Any other questions on the report? Can I echo the remarks that Councillor North East made, and thank all the staff of the council for actually trying to conduct business as usual when we're not doing business as usual. I think it's been extraordinary, the effort that's gone into all the things reported in this very comprehensive report, and it's amazing how much parishes and town councils and we as a town council have been able to do. So thanks very much to everybody, and I look forward to, of course, as everybody else does, returning to some normality at some stage. Laura, do you want to make any comment on the budget implications, or are you tolerably happy with them at the moment? I know we've got the financial report later on.
We have. I mean, I'm tolerably happy with them at the moment, but it's just an ever-changing set of circumstances.
Thank you very much. That's always reassuring when a financial officer says they're tolerably happy because their normal mode is to be fairly gloomy. So thank you for that. Can we then, we've got two recommendations on page 10, which is three recommendations, I'm sorry, to endorse the actions taken during the lockdown, to agree the purchase of a license to continue with the Microsoft Office Teams live events, what we're using tonight, and otherwise to note the contents of the report. Is that generally agreed by everybody? Nobody against?
Agreed.
No, that's fine. Agreed.
Agreed.
Great, thank you. So we'll then move on to item 7.2, which is Town Council priorities. Laura, if you can just take us to that, please.
Okay, so that's on pages 18 to 24, and really members are asked to note the progress that has been made on the Town Council's priorities. So we have included those within your agenda. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much. The most significant, of course, in amongst all these is the Keystone Youth Centre, and it's really good to know that we've made big strides forward in partnership with Arran District Council, and I'll better declare my interest as the leader of that council. It is going ahead, and I think everybody is virtually at one on that and pleased with the progress. But all the other references in the priorities report all show some progress, and the very few that don't are largely due to COVID or other slightly fiddly little things along the way. But on the whole, I think it's a pretty good progress report. Any questions from members? Mike, are you trying to get in? You're mute at the moment. You have to use the cursor on this one to actually unmute.
Yeah, I know. I'm in
It
now.
always gets me as well.
Am I okay to go?
Yes, yes, please.
Chairman, I'd just like to pick up on the sale of Project 82.
Yeah.
I know it was something that Tony always went on about when he was here, and I always agreed with him on it because I was part of the team then that actually opened the building back at the end of the 90s. And I just feel that I don't think we're doing the right thing here. I think there is a need for some sort of community facility in that Wick area. It is the hub of Wick, if you like, that area. And I just think it's a retrograde step to be selling this off. I think if you look at one of the reasoning behind when we first opened it, and that was because of the problems we had with youths around the shopping area and the pub that's there, and it was thought that we wanted to give them somewhere that they could meet safely. And the Project 82 was, and it was the Wire project was born out of this. I also feel that it's a building that has been used in the past by local groups as a community building, and I think we should be looking towards actually keeping it and investing in it and repairing the place. Now, I haven't seen anything to tell me how much it would cost to repair. I don't even know what the repairs are there, but I think we should be looking at keeping it as a community building and leaving Wick with a facility that there isn't for quite a while away. So I would like to see the sale of that cease and us to be putting money into actually restoring it and bringing it back to its former glory. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, Mike, Councillor North East. We're not being asked to take a decision on that tonight. It's a progress report tonight, and the decision reports will come to P&P and Council in October. So that would be the appropriate time when we've got that. And if you do want those sorts of costings to be looked at, as Laura's listening, I think if that can be.
Oh, you've muted, James.
Oh,
We lost your sound, James.
I must have lent on my paper, which was on top of the button. Sorry. So that will come to full council, and Laura could perhaps, if it's easy to get a ballpark figure for renovation or other works there, that would be helpful.
I can certainly look into it, Chair, but I don't think it'll be easy to get a ballpark figure for renovation.
Okay. Well, if anybody else has, I don't want to hold up a decision on this, so I think if we can have some, not an estimate or anything, nobody's asking for that. I think, you know, an experienced eye to look at a building like that should be able to give a ballpark figure, you know, whether it's 100,000 or 250,000 or, you know, whatever it is. I think that's a reasonable, that's all we're asking. I think Mike's asking for, not a detailed costings and a business case at this stage.
No.
Okay. Any other questions or observations on the priorities?
Chair, Councillor Malloy has a question.
Councillor Malloy, John Malloy.
Hello.
Michelle, please.
Hi. Can you see me? Hi. Hello. Sorry.
Yes, please fire away.
With the Project 82 building, we also have a priority to consider options for LTC to provide housing. Would it be worth looking into the option of renovating it into 2 apartments or a couple of studio flats as almost as like start-up projects for people to get their foot into the housing and get them off the streets or something? And even if it didn't work out and we did have to sell the building, selling the building after it's been renovated would probably gain us a lot more than selling it as it is.
Thank you. It's a very tight time scale, but it may be possible to get an indication of that. If, as I say, if it's a professional eye just casting their eye over it and saying, can that be done? What would be the rough cost before any final decision is taken on that?
Yeah. Do you think they'd consider looking into possibly turning it into some apartments?
That's what I'm suggesting, that whoever looks at it can actually make that comment as well.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or observations? No. Otherwise, then can we move to the recommendation, which is on page 18, which is to note the progress report on the Town Council's policies with the addendum that we've requested ballpark figures on those 2 potential courses of action. We haven't asked anybody to do anything on that. We've asked for ballpark figures by way of background before taking the final decision. Thank you. We then move on to, sorry, everybody happy to note that and progress? No dissent? No, thank you. If we then move on to item 7.3, which is town centre events, pages 25 to 27, Laura, please.
Okay, so this is a report updating members on the jointly funded town centre events initiative, and members are asked to note the progress that has been made and to make any suggestions for the augmented reality app, which is set out in paragraph 1.5 of that report.
Thank you very much, Laura. Can I say how well received the Love Local, the loyalty card scheme, and with the monthly draw for shopping in the town centre of Littlehampton seems to have been received. It does seem to have been quite well and widely received. So thank you to whoever dreamt that up and brought it in, and thank you obviously to the Mayor and others who launched it. It seems to be going well. We're obviously going to have to get used to digital everything with the Prime Minister's announcement today of it looks like another 6 months of this. So anything that improves our well-being, our presence and our involvement in the community can only, so I'd commend the 1.5, the app. Thank you. The augmented reality, sorry, device. Any questions, comments?
Councillor North East has asked to speak, Chair.
Councillor Mike North East, please.
Thank you, Chairman. I know it's not possible to do town events now because, well, for obvious reasons. But could we be embracing technology more with regards to perhaps doing some events online? And I know that's thinking out the box a little bit. I don't really know what I'm thinking of, but at least involve people, even if it was like a light switch on at Christmas, to be able to have it so that people could actually join it. I don't know, through a Teams or whatever meeting, to actually be there virtually.
I think that already is being looked at, particularly with respect to the Christmas light switch on. But I echo your request that we have more of it, because I think that's a one-off. If we can have other ones as well.
If I may, Chair. Oh,
He's gone. Yeah, he's nodded off.
Just to advise members that at the present time, officers are investigating exactly those items, as the Chair indicated, Councillor North East. There was some interactive events online for the town show, as we were unable to do that as usual up at Rosemead Park this year. So that was the start of it. And in the meantime, the events team and communications team are looking at other options to do with how we operate both the Remembrance Sunday commemorations and also delivering something that would represent an online version, if you like, of Christmas lights switch on, and enhanced virtual activities that would still allow us to promote and support the high street. Yeah,
I was thinking perhaps as well, if we could look at something for the Pancake Olympics, but doing some sort of other thing. I don't know, just tossing pancakes, but get families involved and all on screen, that sort of thing. If we could run an event like that, I know it's going to take a bit of thinking about, but you know, the technology's there. Instead of just saying to people, we're not doing anything this year, let's try and use it a bit more, even for the fun things. That's all I'm saying.
If I may, through you, Chair, just to confirm that the town show virtual event was our first serious attempt at that, and we are following it through with all the events. And if this continues through to Pancake Olympics, then yep, the same will apply.
Lovely, thank you.
Okay, can I just ask, we seem to have lost James as chair. So can I ask Councillor Long if she can step in to chair the meeting?
Yeah, no pressure.
Sorry, Councillor Long. We're trying our best to get Councillor Walsh back again.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Long. Councillor Malloy has indicated she wishes to speak. Oh.
James, are you back with us?
I'm back with you. I thought it was somebody else's, but then it flashed up a thing saying I'd lost internet connection. It's the first time it's ever happened to me, so I'm sorry about that.
In that case, I will step.
No, please just conduct that item, Jill, please. You've started it, that question or whatever.
Okay, thank you. We have a question from Councillor Malloy.
After all that, my question's been answered anyway, sorry.
Okay,
I'll come back in then. Thanks very much.
Can I just, while I have the floor, as it were?
Of course.
Can I just ask one question? In terms of the augmented reality app, given the current situation, and it's going on at least for 6 months, it looks like, can we afford to do this? It's a lot of money. I'm not sure what equivalent value we're going to get out of it. It just crossed my mind this evening when I was reading through my notes again and listening to the news from the government. I'm just putting it out there, that's all. It just seems to be a lot of money, particularly when we're losing so much income because we haven't got events, we can't have room hires and all the rest of it.
Looking at the report, I don't think we're actually being asked to actually take a decision. It says officers are looking into it, so a report will come back before any decision. So there'll be a business case and costings before any decision is taken on it. So it's a progress report, and I say the operative words are officers looking into the possibility. Yeah. Okay,
thank you.
If I may, through you, Chair, sorry to say that we do have the money to use as part of the town centre initiatives, town centre events initiatives, and I would say that an element of that app would be also highlighting sort of the historical area, the historical features of the area, as well as learning in light of the Look and See Centre going. So it kind of has various elements to it, not just necessarily bringing people into the town centre to use shops, but obviously at this moment in time they are still open and operating. Thank you, Chair.
Thanks very much for that, Laura. That's helpful as well. Any other questions or observations?
Chair, there's a question from Councillor Blanchard-Cooper.
Billy, please. Councillor Blanchard-Cooper.
Thank you. In relation to the virtual reality app thingy, I'm just wondering if we could ask that when this does come forward with prices, etc., we could have some information regarding how similar things have worked in other towns and how much usage they get. I think it's a great idea, but I'd hate to chuck a lot of money at something that other towns have tried and found that they've not actually had massive uptake on. Could you get these sort of things where these things go on a wall? I'll use Chris as an example. He was a great one for doing walking tours of the town, like a treasure hunt of the town, and the funny little bits of information that he would pick up on that people wouldn't know about is great to promote to people. But how many people are going to go and find these codes that you have to go and scan? That's the sort of information I'd want from that. So I'm just kind of giving a heads up to the officers if they could have some info on other towns that have done it as well and the usage. That'd be brilliant. So many thanks.
Super. Thanks very much for that. Any other input? No. If not, then can I take you to the recommendations on page 25, where the committee is invited to note the progress on phases 1, 2 and 3 to the town centre events, to consider the augmented reality app, which we've done, and to make suggestions, which we've also done, and otherwise to note the report. Everybody happy with that?
Agreed.
Thank you very much. We'll then move on to item 7.4, which is the Littlehampton Friday Market, which is on pages 28 to 31. And again, I'm going to ask Laura, who's having a busy evening this evening.
I am indeed, Chair. Thank you. So members have got before them a report on the Friday market. And having considered the report, members are asked to decide whether to make representations to the District Council to seek the relocation of the market, both in the short term during the coronavirus pandemic, but also in the long term after the introduction of the new public realm. I'm happy to take any questions, Chair.
And also, of course, during the public realm works that are going to take place in the High Street, because it won't be able to be there. The report is there, and it talks about the southwest corner of St Martin's car park, where it has been temporarily sited during the earlier part of the COVID emergency once the market re-established itself. So interested to hear members' views on that. Anybody got any views on that?
Councillor Blanchard-Cooper has indicated he wishes to speak, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Billy Blanchard-Cooper.
Thank you, James. It was just to declare an interest as ADC, because I'm chair of licensing, so it does kind of come under that slightly as well. So just to note that. Thank you.
Fine. OK. Any other questions or comments? Councillor North East.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a shame going in that car park up there, because it never seems to work as well. I remember years ago when we did it, and a lot of people just didn't visit it because it was a little bit out of the way. And I just wonder whether it's worth considering the Manor House car park for the location of it. The car park where we're talking about putting it, it's a shopping car park, and it's used by people to come down there, obviously to go into the town, and it gets fairly full on a Saturday and on a Friday. Well, hopefully it does anyway. But I just wonder whether it would be worthwhile looking at the Manor House car park as a suitable alternative for it. But I think in the long term it's something that we've missed the boat on a little bit, and that is to look at providing a covered area for a permanent market. I think when you talk to people about the town, they say, "Oh, we love the old market. We used to like going around there and everything." And during this public realm thing, it doesn't seem to have been looked at in any great detail. And I just think if we could have found an area within the car parks where we could have put, even you don't need to build a whole building, you just need like a canopy over it so that it's the rain and that sort of thing's kept off of it. But I do think we need to look at perhaps establishing a regular market and finding a proper home for it. The precinct, even when we have the one down there now, doesn't lend itself to having a market in it. It restricts the access to the shops.
Yeah.
And I just think we need to look at some sort of permanent place for it. So I think a bit more work needs doing on that, Chairman, and we need to think about having a permanent weekly market under some sort of covering. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you very much for that. Yes, similar thoughts have occurred. Sorry, Juliet, you've got somebody else?
I was just to advise you, Chair, that Councillor Chase, Blanchard Cooper and Malloy would also like to speak.
Great. Well, so let's have the Mayor, Councillor David Chase, first.
Thank you, Chairman. After Mike's little bit, totally concur with Mike. I was going to say, but I totally disagree with it being on the high street. I personally liked it up in the other car park because I felt it lent itself to a market square. But I do like the idea of a manor house, and now with the extension of restrictions, which we have now been given to believe will be for a minimum of 6 months, and with the public realm going to start, I think it needs to be seriously looked into putting it maybe in a manor house, because obviously ADC aren't going to get going back to work very soon with all the extension on restrictions, because he has advised work from home again where you can. So I don't see ADC moving back into their offices very quickly. So you have got the space there, and from your side, James, I think it really needs to be looked into.
Thank you very, very much. Yes, I note that. But we're asking the Town Council's views tonight on this. So I've got Billy Blanchard, Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper next.
Thank you again, James. So I'm quite happy with it being wherever. My only thing is, I'll just say, if we could try to note somewhere that whatever happens, advertising is key. When it moved to the St Martin's car park after COVID, I was very disappointed that through going through the town centre, there was not a scrap of advertising anywhere to state, go through this way to the market. It's quite an obvious thing to do. I think the market operators themselves let themselves down tremendously on this. They are a business. They should, as with any business, be capable of producing some advertising last minute. Whether it's a blackboard in the high street with some sort of done with chalk pens, that can be done within 5 minutes flat. Whether it's someone leafleting, whether it's something more permanent that goes out. I appreciate there's banners that go out around the town for the market, but actually, on the day of the market, when you have got live audiences in the town centre, there was nothing. That to me was one of the biggest issues with it, and it's something that must be addressed if the market is going to be a success in a different location, regardless of where that is. So if we could stress that, that'd be wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. Councillor Michelle Malloy.
Hello. I just want to second Mike and say I think his idea is much better of moving it to a different car park, because where it was completely tucked out of the way. I do agree with it not being on the high street. I've got a gentleman that I look after with Parkinson's, and he really struggles to get seated on his visits to town to have regular rests when the market is there, because sometimes it's obstructing the benches and stuff. And Billy just covered my last bit for me. If they do move, could we have plenty of notice and give them lots of support with letting the public know that they are moving and where they're going to properly, because it would be nice if they were successful somewhere else.
Thank you very much indeed. Do we have any other?
Councillor North East, Chair.
Councillor North East.
Just quickly, Chairman, I'm not going to take up much of your time, but just going back on what Billy said, I thought that's what we got a town centre manager for. That's their job. They should have promoted that, the move of the market into that car park. We should be directing our comments to him and saying it was a pretty poor show. Thank you, Chairman.
Thanks very much. Nobody else?
No.
So, yes, I think we've got a good steer that councillors wish to ask the District Council to look at, both in the short term, certainly the Manor House car park, where it is virtually unused at the moment. That, of course, won't address the problem if and when the pandemic is over and the car park starts to fill up again. And therefore, we perhaps need to have a two-pronged approach to the District Council to address the short-term issue during the COVID emergency and the public realm works in the High Street, where the Manor House would seem to lend itself, but it needs a longer-term look at the longer-term future, and perhaps that might include putting some sort of canopy over part of the St Martin's car park to help to locate it there much more permanently and in a much more friendly, user-friendly way. Does that sum up the feeling of the meeting reasonably well? Nobody dissenting from that?
No, fine with that.
Okay, let's take that as the recommendation then and approve that. And we then move on to the next item, which is, sorry, I'm just going back to my script when I can find it. It keeps disappearing on the screen. Don't play with it, it keeps going off, so I keep losing it. So the next one is 7.5, which is the website accessibility, pages 32 to 51. And again, Laura is going to take us into that one.
Thank you, Chair. So members have before them a detailed report and appendices on the accessibility of the Town Council's website. So an audit of the website's accessibility has been undertaken in line with the Public Sector Body's Accessibility Regulations 2018. Now, whilst some areas of the website are working as they should, such as our web forms, the audit has identified some issues that require action. The largest issue for the council is the documents that we have on our website. So there are a large volume of PDFs which aren't accessible. So they can be read by assistive technology, but there are issues with the text styling and our use of abbreviations. For example, where we've used CLLRS for councillors, that can't be read out by the assistive technology properly. So the regulations state that an organisation has to make an assessment to see whether making particular things accessible is a disproportionate burden. And this weighs up the burden placed on the organisation by making those things accessible with the benefits of making those things accessible. Now, the cost of rectifying the entire website content, including that large volume of PDFs, would be too great for the council and would have very little impact, as outlined in the report. The council's documentation retention policy states that we'll make available online documents that pertain to the current council and the previous council. So that means that in 2023, all documents published before May 2019 will actually be deleted from the website. So it could therefore be deemed that it wouldn't be reasonable for the council to make the entire content accessible, as it is a disproportionate burden. But what officers will be doing is rectifying older committee documents that go back to the start of this council, so from May 2019 up to the present day. And we've already begun work on making new documents accessible. So this report, for example, was written in an accessible format. The other element to draw members' attention to is the need to agree the accessibility statement, which was in Appendix 2. That's on an interim basis until we can get to full council in October, but the statement has to be published by the 23rd of September, which is tomorrow. And apologies for the layout of the accessibility statement, but it's actually using a template from the regulations. I appreciate it's a large report. I'm happy to take any questions and I will try my best to answer them, Chair.
Thanks very much, Laura, for that. I mean, it is very largely technical, and thank you for that very simple explanation of the disproportionate burden assessment, which confused me when I first started looking at it, so thank you for that. Any questions from members before we move to the recommendations?
Councillor Jill Long.
Councillor Jill Long, please.
Thank you, Chairman. The first thing that sprang to mind when I was reading this was whether freedom of information inquiries have ever come in that might require us looking at some of those historical PDFs that wouldn't be accessible under these new requirements. That makes sense.
I assume that we archive everything somewhere. This is just access through the web to the public.
If I may, through you, Chair, yes, we do archive everything. So we have all of our reports and minutes are kept hard copy and bound here.
Okay.
And we do have electronic copies as well on our IT system. To my knowledge, in the last few years, no, we haven't had any FOI inquiries that would require us to send out the PDFs.
That's fine. I'm reassured, but just felt the need to ask the question. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Councillor Blanchard Cooper, Chair.
Councillor Billy Blanchard Cooper, please.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for a extremely well presented explanation of what this all is and the implications. Fully happy to agree with them. I'm just being slightly nosy on this, probably more than anything. But you say the document that's gone out for policy and finance is how it's now supposed to be written. This is purely probably for my own knowledge, but things such as on page 1, I'm picking on you, James, here. Council adopts rules KSTJ. Will things like that be picked up on? And on page 11, 3.5.3, you've got PSDF and LAPF. Will we have to change things like that so that they're not acronyms? I'm just wondering on this, because if not, how will things like that be picked up by the software? Thank you.
If I may, through you, Chair, yes, we will have to look at things like that, particularly the LAPF that you refer to on page 11. So an element of this is that there will need to be some training for officers that produce those reports to ensure that we are looking at everything like that to make sure it's fully accessible. So it's a piece of work that we are looking at and going through right now.
For yourself, Chair, just thank you on that, Laura, because as I say, it's just actually a matter of interest. So thank you for that. And good luck with the work on it, because I think it's going to be a real adjustment for people when they're doing minutes and things, because I can appreciate you get into habits and it's very hard to break those sometimes, but it is all being done for the right reasons. So thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Nobody else? Can I take you then to the recommendations on page 32, where we're asked to approve the disproportionate burden assessment and to approve the website accessibility statement and to note the result of the audit and note the work that the council needs to do to take it forward. Everybody happy with that?
Agreed.
Agreed.
Thank you very much.
Yes, happy with that.
Thank you, that's agreed then. We then move on to the item 7.6, the West Sussex Association of Local Councils, pages 52 to 56. Laura again, please.
Thank you, Chair.
Long running saga this.
Thank you, Chair. So members have before them a report that outlines a process being undertaken by the West Sussex Association of Local Councils, which could lead to WSALC, as they're referred to, splitting away from SALC, which is the Surrey and Sussex Association of Local Councils. This could actually have implications for the town council, including financial implications such as exit costs, which would fall upon the parishes and town councils that form part of that wider body. It's also worth noting that SALC had actually already started a strategy review in November 2019. That was actually paused because of COVID, but is about to recommence. There have been FOI, Freedom of Information inquiries and questions raised as to why this process is being undertaken by WSALC, but they have not yet been answered. So committee is being asked to recommend to council through the urgent action procedure that in consultation with the mayor to submit the town council's intention to leave WSALC, SALC and NALC on the 31st of March 2021, which will allow us to provide the necessary 6 months notice, but we'll reserve the right to withdraw this should the situation so dictate. And the urgent action procedure is being recommended as action's not actually being taken, so council can then choose whether they endorse this or not. And committee is also recommended to seek a further report for the October or December meeting of the committee.
Thank you very much,
Thank you,
Laura.
Chair.
This really seems to be to covering our back, really, both in financial terms and it's been a bit of a long-running saga in other areas. What have they ever done for us type of question. I've certainly discussed this with the town clerk, Peter Herbert, and this seems to us both and recommend to you that this is the right thing to do, but to leave the option to return should the situation clarify and it be seen to be in our interest to do so. So grateful if the committee could support this. So any comments or views? No, okay, thank you. Can I then put the recommendation to the committee on page 52, already outlined by Laura? Can I have agreement to that course of action, please? Everybody agreed?
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Yeah, I agree with Lexit.
Thank you, Mike. That's very up to date. Very good. Okay, we then move on to 7.7, which is the monitoring officer update on page 57. Laura, please.
So I think this is a relatively simple one, Chair. There is an email on page 57 which provides us with an update on the monitoring officer arrangements for members to note, really. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, it's just since the departure of Liz Futcher, we had to find a new monitoring officer at Arran District Council. I better declare my interest again. And this explains that temporarily we've got Nick Bennett from Chichester District Council, who is their monitoring officer, and going out to advertisement to seek a permanent appointment for Arran District Council. So it's really just for noting in case there are any monitoring officer requirements for the town council. Everybody happy to note that?
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. If we can then move on to 7.8, which is the new youth centre in Wick, the Keystone Centre, and it's really the legal agreement to make sure that we've got the legal side and the tenure of it right, and the recommendation that the council enters into a full repairing insuring lease with Arran District Council for the footprint of the site of the new youth centre in Eldon Way, Wick at a peppercorn rent for 50 years. Nothing really to add to that, Laura, is there?
I'm going to check, if I may, Chair, with the Assistant Town Clerk.
No, indeed, that's pretty much it, Chair. But this is the first. It's not actually the legal agreement. We're getting going on that, if I can put it that way.
Okay.
But we do need to get an agreement at some stage in terms of the tenure. So that's the proposal at the moment. Just to say that the proposal is 50 years, but it's based on the assumption that the design life of the building will be that long. Until we know the final materials, it's not easy to say, but that's the proposal that's come to us from the district as the basis of a legal agreement.
Thanks very much. Any comment from members? Mike shaking his head. No other comments? Okay, can we then approve the recommendation on page 58, sorry, that I read out to you? Everybody happy?
Yeah. Happy.
Then we move on to item 8, which is the finance, and the first one is 8.1, and it's amendments to the financial regulations, and these are incredibly complex, and Laura is going to do the difficult job of recommending them to us and asking that we approve them. Laura.
Thank you, Chair. So you have before you a report, so hopefully the table goes some way to explaining some of the changes, but basically now revised the model financial regulations, and then the Town Council have been progressing work to move towards online payments, and therefore the financial regulations have needed amending. The amendments have been listed in the table on page 60, but the change that I'd like to draw members' attention to is the need to revert to the previously agreed financial regulations and have only one authorised member signatory rather than 2 for orders of electronic payments. Now, this change is in accordance with the Legislative Reform Order 2014, which actually removed the requirement to have cheques or orders for payment to be signed by 2 elected members in order to actually facilitate the use of electronic means of payments. It will enable us to be able to process payments more efficiently, reducing the need to transfer money between accounts repeatedly due to the overnight sweeping process that the council has in place between its 2 accounts. And ultimately that means that our suppliers will get paid quicker. I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much, Laura, and I'm certainly very happy to go along with your recommendations, because you know far more about these regulations than I do, and probably anybody else on the council. Any questions or comments from members? No. Can I take it then that the committee is content to approve the recommendation on page 59 and to recommend the revised regulations to the full council for approval? Agreed, everybody?
Agreed.
Thank you. We then move to item 8.2, which is the committee budget monitor, ages 88 to 91. And it really is the Laura show tonight, isn't it? So switching for these 2 items from Deputy Town Clerk to the Financial Monitoring Officer, Financially Responsible Officer. Laura, please could you introduce this one?
Thank you, Chair. So members have before them the regular budget monitor report. And key on this one is the committee are being asked to approve the renewal of the Town Council's insurance policy, accepting the cheapest quote, which has been provided by our current provider on a 3-year long-term agreement, and to otherwise note the report. But I'm happy to take any questions. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you very much. I just repeat the sort of question I made at the beginning. There's nothing particularly in the finance report that you need to draw as a worry to the to this committee at this stage.
No, other than, am I live? Yeah, that's it. other than obviously what was highlighted in the COVID report, so
Yeah.
the loss of income, the bank interest, yeah, other than that, that's it.
But as you said earlier, you're reasonably content with the situation we're in.
If anyone can describe this situation as reasonably content, yes.
Thank you. Any questions or comments from members on the report or the recommendations? Councillor North East.
Thank you, Chairman. Can I just ask Laura? We talk about the loss of income to the place, and obviously that's a concern. But also there are a number of things that we're not spending money on.
Yeah.
So we're actually saving money. The balance between the two. Are we in debt, or do we have a bit of money left because we're not doing the things that we normally do? Do you understand what I'm saying?
If I may, through you, Chair, yes, I do understand what you're saying, Councillor North East. So on page 17 of the agenda, I've tried to outline the ongoing budget implications as a result of COVID-19. So that does look at expenditure where, as you say, we haven't had the expenditure for some of the events like Town Show, etc., and then looks at the income that we're not bringing in. So all in all, the total expenditure that we haven't spent is 71,000, and we are projecting that we will have a loss of income of around £60,000.
So we're £11,000 better off, if I can put it that way.
Right. Okay. Then all I'm going to ask is that we hear all the time of businesses being in financial difficulties during this pandemic, but we also need to keep an eye on our local charitable organisations and clubs around the town that are also experiencing quite a bit of financial hardship. And perhaps if we can just look a little bit sympathetically on them when they come to us for grant. I know our grants get taken up pretty quickly, but if there could be some money made available, an extra bit of money, so that these people, when they do come to us, we can perhaps give them a bit of money to keep them going, because the last thing we want to see is community organisations falling by the wayside, because we'll need them even more when we come out of this. Thanks, Chairman.
Thanks very much. I would support that, but I think each one needs to be treated on an as-needs basis rather than have a blanket policy, so that each one needs to be treated on its own merits. So rather than actually making a policy, I think we note and ask Laura to note what you say, and wait and see if we get any requests for hardship or whatever. And of course, there are other charity bodies making grants as well. So it's a very important plea that Mike's made, and I would support that. Laurie?
Chair?
Sorry?
If I may, just,
yes.
Chair, just to assure members that the previous meeting of the Community Resources Committee earlier on this month, we did give a broad update, and Councillor North East is quite right. There are a number of groups that have been extremely active when it comes to supporting the community through the pandemic. And we were able to recognise some of those in the grant process in June this year. The Community Resources Officer is in contact with those groups and monitoring the position, and more the focus now will be on the service funding agreements that we have, which are covered briefly in the COVID report, but a more extensive report will probably go back to the Community Resources Committee in October, as we get a better idea in terms of how they've been able to work in the current climate, and their ability to deliver on those agreements.
Thanks very much, Juliet. It's very helpful. Any other comments or questions? No, if we can then note the report, please. Thank you very much. Everybody happy with that?
Sorry, Chair, if I may, there's a recommendation as well to...
Oh, sorry, I turned over the page. Thank you. Yes, on the insurance, I do beg your pardon. There's a recommendation on the insurance. A member's happy to note and to approve the recommendation. Agreed?
Yeah.
Thank you very much indeed. That brings us to the end of the normal part of the business. So I now recommend that we move into exempt business. So can I approve that we recommend the press and public be excluded from the meeting under section 100 of the Local Government Act due to the confidential nature of the business to be discussed? Somebody second that, please. Thank you, Mike. Is that agreed by the committee?
Yes.
Agreed.
Yes, agreed.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. If I may, before we sign off, I just need to issue a point of clarification. At the beginning of the meeting, we erroneously called Councillor Tandy's name as being a member of this committee, just to confirm that he isn't, so that won't be recorded.
Thank you. I nearly queried that at the time and I thought perhaps I've got something wrong, so I kept my mouth shut, but thanks.
My fault. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, so we'll close this part of the meeting. You'll all need to log out and then log into the second login for the next part of the meeting.
Thank you, Chair. That's closed at 7:41.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chair.